Welcome to NAESP HQ in this podcast video series from NAESP headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, highlighting noteworthy stories for pre-K-8 school leaders. I'm NAESP Executive Director Earl Franks. Joining me today to discuss the November 30 elections and the implications for education is Danny Carlson, NAESP's Associate Executive Director of Policy and Advocacy. Danny, let's start with your observations from the election results as of today, the day after. We're actually recording this the afternoon of November the 4th.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Franks. It was a late night. It is still not over. A couple highlights, bright spots. A lot of people voted. The highest seems to be going to be the highest voter participation in the history of the country, so that's great. I think it is, I would say, kind of going in, if you were looking at the polls, both at the presidential level and at the Senate level, it looked sort of very positive, for Democrats. I think there was a lot of sort of polls putting them up quite a bit. State by state, it varied, but in general, it appears like that the president sort of did better than expectations. Certainly in places like Florida, in North Carolina, Ohio, places like that. Georgia, as of this recording, is still outstanding. It looks to be within about 60,000 votes, so that's an interesting state. Joe Biden appears he's going to flip Arizona. And then it's just the upper Midwest. These were the three big states that sort of, determined the 2016 election: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. As of right now, it looks like Wisconsin is called for Biden. Michigan is very close. Pennsylvania is going to be very close. Right now, we sort of don't know. There isn't a final call, but it appears that it could look like Biden has a sort of better path to the 270 electoral votes. The other sort of thing is control the Senate. So that was a big focus going into this election. Some very close races that again appeared as though that Democrats were going to potentially flip those seats, places like North Carolina and Maine, and it appears that Republicans are going to hold on to those seats. So as of right now, the chances of Democrats to flip the Senate are pretty low. It would take a sort of a Georgia, two Senate races in Georgia for them to do that. So all in all, kind of a mixed bag across the board, but it was pretty interesting to watch last night.
Talk to us a little bit about the changes that were reflected in the House races.
Yeah, so the again, there was expectations based on polling and sort of other things that that Democrats would sort of pad their lead in the House with their control of the House. They're going to hold on to control of the House, but there were some races that Republicans held on to that they were not expected to. So all in all, probably a little bit of a disappointment for House Democrats, but I would but going into the next Congress, Democrats will be in control of the House.
How do you see these results factoring into a second stimulus package that we have been advocating for the past several months?
Yeah, I think TBD is kind of the phrase of the day right now, and that holds true for the coronavirus response package. This is something that NAESP has been pushing, of course, since March. The $175 billion for K-12 that schools need to sort of respond to the coronavirus pandemic. Unfortunately, Congress and the administration have failed to reach an agreement, but we are now sort of in the lame duck. And it'll just be very interesting to see. Under the scenario where sort of there's a President Biden that will be inaugurated in January, and Speaker Pelosi is dealing with a Republican Senate. There might be an effort to try to do a sort of smaller bill. If Democrats do not flip the Senate, the sort of prized larger stimulus bill, the sort of $3 trillion bill, that ain't going to happen. And so it'll force sort of Pelosi and sort of McConnell to potentially agree on something, potentially in the short term, in the November, December sort of time frame, But certainly, again, if there's a Biden administration, that would come in January of 2021.
And certainly it remains to be seen. Of course, the results of the election will factor in. President Trump had said that he was supportive of a second stimulus bill. And so what happens after this election, I think, as you said, TBD, because we really don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The president leading up to the election was really pushing hard for his folks in the administration to sort of cut a deal with Pelosi before the election. Under the scenario were he to lose here, there could the sort of wind out of those the wind in the sails there could sort of be gone, and we could lose some urgency on his end. Under that scenario, then though, you would be looking at just waiting for that sort of January 2021 with a new Biden administration coming in and sort of putting forth a new deal.
Lastly, what do you see as priorities for NAESP's advocacy efforts the next couple of months?
Yeah, COVID. No, I mean, this is the priority. I mean, this is the big thing. I mean, we're talking about $175 billion at stake for schools, and we're talking short-term costs and sort of long-term needs. And sort of what I mean by that is, if you're a school that is facing, costs to sort of keep your school open with PPE and transportation and staffing and all those things, we know that you need resources right now, and so that's our focus. And if you're a principal that your school is fully remote, we know that you have huge cost challenges right now too, with things like hotspots and all of those things. And so that is our priority. It has been a full court press to try to get funds to schools. But that's in the short term. But in the long term, we're looking at state budgets, and it's bleak. There's going to be likely in most states a lot of cuts to sort of K-12 education, and so part of this push on this 175 billion is so that funding can backfill some of those state cuts, and so hopefully that it doesn't hit schools as hard. And so I would say really in the next 3 to 6 months, we're going to continue just to really push on this, among other things. But this is really going to really remain the focus.
And our ask for all of you who are listening to this video podcast, please contact those that represent you in Washington, D.C. And Danny, if they want to get involved in our advocacy efforts here at NAESP, visit our website. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, just NAESP.org. And if you click on the advocacy section, there is a link to our campaign. And that campaign, as Dr. Franks mentioned, will connect you so that you can reach out to your member of Congress and urge them to support a package that funds schools.
Danny, thanks for joining me today to discuss these fascinating election results. And as you said, this is all to be determined. As I'm sitting here looking at the map, there's no use to even talk about where we're at right now, because there's a number of states that I see that are still to be decided. But until next time, I'm Earl Franks. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of NAESP HQ.